but that way most complicated subject. Normally, when persons are dealing with their own properties, that is either transfer inter vivos, that is between two living persons, as it is in case of contracts, transfer of property, that one person who is owner of the property is transferring his property to another person who is also living. That is called transfer inter vivos. While in case of succession, there is a transfer posthumous, disposition of property posthumously, that is after death of a person. And therefore, we should never confuse the operation of succession and transfer. Now, in succession also, there are two parts. One is when it is succession to the estate of a person who has not indicated any of his wishes or wills. That is called intestate succession. And in that case, today also, in India at least, Muslims have got their own intestate rules of inheritance. Hindus have got their own intestate laws, that is Hindu Succession Act 1956, and the textual, customary, the law of families and co-partneries. The Christians, Parsis, they have also got different rules for intestate succession. While testamentary succession is other part of succession. And in case of testamentary succession, it is succession, that is to say disposal of the property of a person who is dead. The property going to the living persons, that is according to his will, wish, last will of that person, and that will, when it is written, it is called a testament. And a succession which takes place under testament is testamentary succession. Testamentary succession should not be confused with transfer of property. Or for youngsters, just to note properly, that in 2001, before Kerala High Court, there was a question where there was some dispute in which the plaintiff had got some orders of status quo. Dispute was regarding properties, and while status quo was in operation, one of the parties to that suit had disposed of the property by his will, and now action was sought to be taken, claiming that this making of the will is violation of the status quo. The other side said no, the status quo is for transfer by act of parties, while here is no such thing, it is disposal by the will. And when it was before the Karnataka High Court, the single judge came to a conclusion, and for the youngsters, they should note properly that in Transfer of Property Act, definition of transfer is when a living person in present or in future transfers his property to another living person, that is inter vivos. But the words used are transfers his property in present or in future. The single judge of the High Court confused these words and came to a conclusion that this means property can be transferred in future also. Therefore, even such type of wills will be covered, and hence what was done by the testator by will is violation of that particular order of status quo. When the matter came before the division bench said here is a basic distinction between transfers inter vivos and the posthumous transfers. We will not call those transfers, we will call those disposition of property. Under posthumous disposal, when a will is made, a testamentary succession is there. The rule is will starts speaking only when testator stops speaking. So unless the testator is dead, there is no will. Even if he has made a will and even if it may be registered, it is a proposed will, intended will. But unless he dies leaving it behind, there will be no will. And therefore here by act of parties, nothing has happened. And if that is so, then this disposition cannot be equated with transfer. It has not violated that order of status quo. It is a different thing. Once we understand this, now proceeding with the will, there are deeds and deeds, or you people are concerned with drafting of deeds, instruments. The deeds are of two types basically. It may be a multilateral deed, or it may be a single party deed. A multilateral deed is known as indenture. Say transfer inter vivos, that is sale, mortgage, lease. These are the multilateral deeds, indentures, and those are normally drafted in third person. The vendor hereby transfers, etc. While in case of a will, it is a deed poll, POLL. A deed poll is a single party deed. There is no other party to that particular document. And therefore, such deeds poll are drafted normally in first person. Say that you people are day in and day out drafting the powers of attorney. I hereby, this way, in first person,
I think there is network problem with sir. Please wait few minutes, sir will join us.
Participants, we are facing some technical issues. Kindly be patient. We are trying to resolve and we'll be resorting back as soon as possible. Just be patient for some few minutes.
Participant, please don't start your videos. Keep your videos shut down. Sir will join us and we'll proceed with lecture within few minutes. चेअरमन सर,
हॅलो. हा
आवाज सर जॉईन होत आहेत. 5 मिनिटात टेक्निकल प्रॉब्लेम आहे.
हो,
तोपर्यंत
yes.
आपण सर्वांना थोडंफार हे करावं क्लिप बद्दल. चेअरमन सर.
यस यस, एक मिनिट.
येस.
हॅलो. हॅलो.
हा सर.
हॅलो.
हा सर, बोला सर, येते आवाज आपला.
आपल्या सर्वांना माहिती आहे की बार काउन्सिल तर्फे क्लेप प्रोग्राम, कंटिन्युअस लीगल एज्युकेशन प्रोग्राम हे 2010 पासून, जवळजवळ 2010 पासून हे चालू केलेले आहे. आणि लॉकडाऊनच्या पूर्वी प्रत्येक तालुक्याच्या ठिकाणी, जिल्ह्याच्या ठिकाणी, जिथे जिथे आपले मेंबर, बार काउन्सिलचे मेंबर ज्या असोसिएशनच्या थ्रू वेळोवेळी असे क्लेप प्रोग्राम आयोजित केले. आता असा क्लेप प्रोग्राम, लास्ट क्लेप प्रोग्राम बार काउन्सिल तर्फे 15 तारखेला धुळे या ठिकाणी आयोजित केला होता. पण अनफॉर्च्युनेटली हे कोरोना व्हायरस, कोविड-19 हा संसर्ग चालू झाला आणि वाढू नये यासाठी प्रिकॉशन म्हणून सर्व सार्वजनिक कार्यक्रम महाराष्ट्र सरकार आणि उच्च न्यायालयाने रद्द केले. आणि तो 15 तारखेचा धुळ्याचा कार्यक्रम हा रद्द करण्यात आला. त्यानंतर सरकारने कंटिन्युअसली लॉकडाऊन, हॅलो आले का आवड साहेब, लॉकडाऊन वाढवला आणि ते लॉकडाऊन,
आवाज सर आलेले आहेत.
हो यस.
येस सर, जस्ट अ मिनिट.
Hello.
येस सर,
Hello.
प्लीज स्टार्ट.
हॅलो.
Hello. Can you hear me?
हा यस.
येस सर, येस.
Yeah. So to proceed with the subject, there was some internet disconnection and therefore some problem. The last thing we were discussing was the kinds of deeds, that is to say, the indentures, that is multilateral deeds, and the deeds poll, unilateral deeds. A will is a deed poll, and deed poll being a unilateral deed, one party deed, is drafted in always first person, that I so and so do hereby make this my will, etc. Now in case of wills, the will who can make and how can make is the problem. To answer this, so far Hindus are concerned, in old Hindu law, there were no specific provisions for making will, because there was that co-pastory and joint family system, wherein the ownership was always vesting in the family, that is co-pastory, commensality of interest, and therefore all that one could do is expressing his wish, and if it was respected by others, that was all right, but particular rules were not there. While so far Hindus are concerned, in 1870, an act was enacted, and only certain provinces, particularly Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, that is metropolitan cities as they were then called, there some provision for wills was made. However, no particular rules were there. While amongst English Christians and Muslims, the provision for will was always there. In Muslim law, always it can be traced to 12th century, when in 12th century, the Hidayah, that provided for rules of wills that could be made by Muslims, Mohammedans. While during Aurangzeb's reign, there was Fatwa Alamgiri. This further laid down the rules for Mohammedan wills. The rest of the provisions, those were there. In 1925, the Indian Succession Act was enacted. And under this act, the succession for others than Hindus, Muslims, it was together, and for all others, the Succession Act was applicable. While in Succession Act, the Hindu Succession Act 1956, till it was enacted, Indian Succession Act 1925 was not applicable to Hindus. And therefore, today also you will find in Indian Succession Act, the beginning itself says applicability of the act, scope and extent, that this does not apply to Muslims or Hindus. Now, in 1956, when the 4 basic laws of Hindus were enacted, that is in 55 Hindu Marriage Act, in 56 the Hindu Succession Act, Hindu Minority Guardianship Act, Hindu Maintenance Adoption Act. In all these acts, the definition of Hindu is to be seen. And that definition says that a Hindu means all those persons who are Jains, Buddhists, Sikhs, Vaishyavas, Lingayats, and all other sects of Hindus. Therefore, though Indian Succession Act 1925 says that this does not apply to Hindus, Jains, Buddhists, Sikhs, because now in the definition of Hindus since 1956, all these are included in Hindu. And the Hindu Succession Act of 1956, in section 6 and the clauses 2, 3 thereof, it specifically says that a Hindu, male or female, can dispose of his or her property by a will, and that too even if that property is in co-pastory undivided. Likewise, section 15, that is under section 14 of the Hindu Succession Act, a female is declared to be absolute owner of the property and she is capable of transferring her property inter vivos, while in section 15 a provision is also made that a Hindu female can also dispose of her properties by making a will. And how the will is to be made by a Hindu, the Hindu Succession Act, section 30, that is very important. Section 30 of Hindu Succession Act 1956 says that a Hindu who desires to make a will can make a will according to the provisions of the Indian Succession Act 1925. That is to say, in other words, now we can say that though Hindu Succession Act 1956 has different rules for intestate succession, while testamentary succession is regulated by the Indian Succession Act 1925, and therefore today we can say that Indian Succession Act 1925 applies to all. Only Muslims to some extent, to what extent we will see later, to some extent are regulated by their textual law, the practice that they are following. The next question we will ask to ourselves is that what is a will? The definition of the will, that is, will is a legal declaration. Disposal of property is caused thereby, and it is to take effect after the death of the testator, that is posthumously. So the moment you say it is a legal declaration, person making a will must be competent to contract, that is, he is major, has attained the age of majority, he is of sound mind, and wills are normally to be interpreted at latter stage, we will see, most liberally. Therefore, even a person who is not ordinarily of sound mind and is epileptic or sometimes relapses into insanity, he can make a will when he is of sound mind. The second requirement of a will is there must be a property. If some person is writing a philosophy as to how his family should hereafter live, that is no will unless there is disposal of property. And that property should be there. Maybe that most of it is his property or sometimes even somebody else's property. We will see how. The disposal of property is the main crux of a will, and the disposal is posthumous, that is after his death. Now, because of this, a will is to be distinguished from other disposals of property, and in a will, certain terms are always used. That in a will, there is no transferor, there is a testator, that is person who makes the will. Then there are legatees, that is the persons to whom the property is given under the will, as in transfer of property we call a transferee. Here he is the legatee. And what is given, that bounty, in transfer of property we call it a gift. Here it is a legacy. And a testator confers a legacy upon a legatee, which is to take effect after his death. So long he is living, there is no will, it is a proposed will only. Now, in these wills, the testator may also make a provision that when he is dead and gone, the will shall be executed by some person in whom the testator has got trust and faith. So, when such administrator is appointed, he is called an executor. So, when testator himself in his will, by making a specific provision, has appointed a certain person to execute his will after his death, that executor represents the testator in executing the will. The executor may apply to the court and ask for authority, that is what is technically called a probate. So, when executor applies for a probate, the court will make inquiry and certify the copy of the will, and that certified copy of the will together is called a probate. The other term which is normally and usually used in testamentary succession is a codicil. A codicil is a supplement of a will. That is to say, suppose that a will is a long will, testator has so many properties, so many relations here, and he has made all those things. And subsequently he acquires some property, or he loses some property, or some new members in the family are there, or some are gone. That is, circumstances have changed. Then in changed circumstances, the testator may supplement the will by a codicil. So the whole will stands subject to this correction, subject to this alteration. And another quality of a will is, the codicil is, that codicil can also subrogate the will. That is to say, cancel the will, nullify the will. So a codicil, being a supplement, is always to be read with the will. Date of will and date of codicil together is date of death of testator, not the date when the will is made. The another question is that wills, when those are made, how they should be made? Normally, a will is required to be in writing. So far, Indian Succession Act 1925 is concerned, we are not considering at the moment the Mohammedan wills. A will must be in writing. That must be attested, executed. Now, writing understood, that it is put on some paper. The second thing is execution. Will is to be executed by the testator. To execute a will is with intention to make the will, to put his signature or sign may be thumb impression, or in some olden documents we have seen the senior lawyers will be knowing that sometimes the persons who could not write just put a tick or a cross and say that this is the sign. But when subsequently the people became smarter and could say this is not his sign, therefore the practice of taking thumb impression started. So some sign, thumb is also a sign, that sign of the testator. But suppose that a testator has met an accident, both his hands are fractured, and he is lying in the hospital. Now he is not in a position even to sign, to put his mark, thumb. Then he may authorize some person on his behalf to sign the will. And this authority by evidence can be established, that is the requirement. Now, authorized person can also sign the will. Another requirement of a will is once it is executed, it must be attested. And now let us understand the definition of attestation properly. Attestation requires at least 2 witnesses. More than 2 will do. These 2 witnesses, each of whom has seen the testator signing the will or affixing his mark, or the testator has authorized a person to sign the will, and if the testator has signed in their absence and then the witnesses are called, they have received personal acknowledgement from the testator that he has signed the will or his authorized person has signed the will, and then the attesting witnesses sign in presence of testator. Here, a proposition to be remembered properly is that attesting witnesses must sign in presence of testator. It is not necessary that testator should sign in presence of attesting witnesses. If he has signed before, he can give personal acknowledgement. It is also not necessary that both the witnesses or all the witnesses should sign in presence of each other. That is to say, each witness must sign in presence of testator. There should be at least 2 witnesses, and then will is a legal declaration. While there is another form of will, or will may be an unprivileged will. That is what we were talking about. There can be a privileged will, which is quite important part. Suppose that there are army men, persons in army, airmen, persons in air force, sailors, the mariners, and all persons who are on expedition, and maybe doctors, maybe other staff, they do not have now time to make wills. And emergencies may come when somebody is injured, somebody is seriously involved in some scuffle, and now the problem is that person wants to make a will. For such persons, a provision is made, what is known as a privileged will. Privilege is a special concession, a special authority. Privileged will need not be signed. If signed in the hand of the testator, whenever a will is signed by testator's hand, in testator's hand, such wills are known as holographed wills. So if it is a holographed will, it need not be executed. It need not be attested. Or sometimes, if the will is just spoken to some authoritative person, that is, say, an army man may be injured, and to his superior or to a doctor, he tells that his property should go in a particular way. That is also a will, a privileged will, which need not be written. If written, need not be signed. If signed, may not be attested. And even if it is oral, it will do. Of course, such wills in due course are to be replaced by regular wills. Now in wills, another important thing to be remembered is that how a will can be revoked. Suppose that testator changes his mind. Here again, the transfers inter vivos, that is transfer of property. Suppose that a owner makes first transfer today, second transfer tomorrow, third transfer day after tomorrow of the same property to different persons. Rule of law is that first transfer only is valid, because the moment he transferred the property, he had no more title to the property, and therefore under the rule of nemo dat code non-habet, he could not give any property subsequently. So only first transfer is valid. While in case of a will, if testator has time, property and intentions, he can go on making will every day. Any number of wills can be written. And when he is dead, an inventory will be taken and found out how many wills he had made. And last will is the only will. So a will can be revoked by making another will. Though other will does not say, I revoke my previous will. Normally will say, I so and so do hereby revoke all my earlier wills and declare this to be my last will. But in fact, which is last will, that is to be seen. Or in some cases, it may happen that he just writes a codicil. And by that supplement, by that codicil, he declared that I have cancelled my earlier will, and therefore now the will doesn't stand, or a will may be revoked by marriage of testator. That a testator, when making a will, was unmarried and subsequently marries. The will stands revoked. So this way the revocation will take place. While now we will consider another point in validity of a will, that are all the wills valid or some are void? Because now there is no testator to say in the court that this was not my wish, this was not my will, somebody had just influenced me, and therefore law takes care to see that it is his free will, that he desired it and accordingly it went on. Therefore, that testator was talking and somebody was writing, and what is written, the testator could not or did not have capacity to read and verify, and he was told that the will reads as he has dictated or said. Such type of a thing is fraud. When there is a fraud and fraud is proved, will is revoked, void. Or when there is coercion, that wills are always amongst close relations, and in close relations somebody is excluded. If somebody is excluded, that somebody may have grudge and grievance, and there is a coercion. Under coercion, the testator is signed, will is void. Or there is a peculiar word used in the Succession Act. There is importunity. Importunity against opportunity, different thing. That here, not strictly undue influence, but suppose that a very near relation of testator in the hospital is sitting next to the testator, and when testator is trying to dispose of the property, he is just making a sign to himself and looking at the testator with some gaze. The testator may be influenced to give something to this man, even if testator doesn't wish. Such type of thing is called, influence is called importunity. If that was there, then also will is revoked. Now, will is valid, but whatever is given to the legatee by way of legacy is called a bequest. Though will is valid, all the bequests may not be valid. Some bequests may be void. So next detail of our discussion is void bequests. A bequest is void if it is made to an attesting witness. Just see the object behind this, that the person who is executor or attesting witness, these are the persons who are ultimately going to show that whether testator was making the will with his free will and was his own free agent, and therefore to make them disinterested in the property, the provision is, if any property is given, any bequest is made to an attesting witness, it is void. Or a bequest is made to the spouse of the attesting witness, that is also void. That is to say, attesting witness male to him or to his wife, attesting witness is a female, to her or to her husband, a bequest cannot be made, though made it is not valid. Secondly, a bequest made to the executor, because the executor is the person who is going to represent legally the testator after his death, and therefore he also should be disinterested person in the properties of the testator. Therefore, if any bequest is made to him, that is also void. The other void bequest, and this is more important part, that certain bequests are made which are uncertain in nature. That exactly what is done, what is said, how it is said is not certain. That some gap is left, and suppose that a testator says, I hereby bequest a sum of rupees and amount is not written. Or a testator says, I hereby grant 10,000 rupees to, and the name of the legatee is not written. Such bequests are void. Likewise, a bequest made to an unborn person is also void. You must give bequest to a living person. The proposition of law, not only succession, but also all the transfers, that vesting of the property should never be in abeyance. That is, property must immediately. Even if there is a transfer of property, the moment the execution is complete, transferor completes his signature. Before he leaves the pen, property passes to the purchaser. Likewise, after death of the testator, the property will vest immediately in the legatee. While when you making a bequest to an unborn person, that is who is not in existence today, after death of testator, in whom the property will vest, it will be in abeyance. This is not allowed. And therefore, sections 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117 represent a particular important concept. Will made, bequest made to an unborn person or bequest creating perpetuity is void. Now, what is perpetuity? That is, testator not allowing the property to vest in anybody for unlimited time. Suppose that there is a testator who is very cautious to say that his fortune he has made should be under his control only. And therefore he says after his death, the property is given for life to his son A. Then for life to son's son, for life to son's son's son, so on, unlimited generations. So after 2 or 3 generations, if somebody were in need of selling the property, renovating the property, changing the property, they do not have capacity to do that. If inquiry is made, why you do not have capacity? Oh, that my grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, he was so cautious that he has not given us power. Where is that great-great-great-grandfather? He is lying in his grave under the property. And from under his grave, he is controlling the property above his grave. This is called perpetuity. The thing is, you are dead, forget about the things of living persons, they will manage their business. And therefore the rule is that perpetuity cannot be created, there cannot be postponement of vesting, or when the will is giving property to a class, that I hereby bequest my property to sons of A, B, C. And A or B or C do not have any sons today. They are also unborn persons. Such type of bequest, they are also void. Or a bequest made to some religious purpose, or bequest made to some charity. The rule is such bequest must be made, the will must be made at least 1 year before the death of testator. And will must be deposited with authorities within 6 months of execution, and then only such type of bequest they will be valid. While some bequests are conditional bequests, as you people have already studied. Condition means some requirement that is to be fulfilled for getting the property. These conditions basically may be a condition precedent or a condition subsequent. A condition precedent is that which is to be fulfilled before claiming the legacy, while condition subsequent is that which can divest the legacy. If a condition precedent is impossible, and one example is given in Succession Act, that a legacy is given to A with a condition that he must within 8 days walk at a time at a speed of 100 miles per hour. One cannot do that. Therefore, it is impossible. If it is impossible, it's void. the bequest is void. Or if a condition is immoral or illegal, that a bequest is made to a woman if she divorces her husband. This is immoral, and therefore this bequest is also void. Or a bequest is made to A, provided that he kills Z. Bequest is void. While the condition subsequent, if condition subsequent is illegal, immoral, unreasonable, bequest is valid, condition is void. So the bequest made to A and condition is that if she does not divorce her husband within 1 year, the bequest will be going to B. She need not divorce because that condition itself is illegal, immoral, uncertain, then it is void. Now, all these conditions, if they are performed properly, then the bequests are given. Here, next detail, let's discuss it this way, that what are the kinds of bequests? That bequests may be making specific mentions of the properties, or bequest may be made in generic sense, or some bequest may be demonstrative. So this specific bequest, that is a defined property, is given. A testator owns a plot of land bearing plot number 101, and he says, I give plot number 101 on so-and-so road in so-and-so city to so-and-so. This is specific bequest. While if the testator says, I give 10,000 rupees to X. Now this is just a demonstrative. 10,000, which 10,000 is not certain. Any 10,000 rupees from his assets can be given. There can be alternative bequest also, which says, I hereby bequest my house to A. And if A is not then living, then to B. This is also valid. Or there can be joint bequests. Say a bequest is made, I hereby grant my house to B and C. They take together. But suppose that before testator's death, one of them is dead. B is dead. C will take. Because every bequest, every legacy, though on the date of making the will that legatee was living, if the legatee dies before the testator, the legacy is always lost. That is called ademption of legacy. That is by death of the legatee. While in demonstrative legacies, the source is demonstrated. If it is said that out of my money in so-and-so bank, 10,000 rupees should be given to Z, he will get out of that bank deposit. Suppose that by the time testator is dead and that bank deposit is to be paid, bank has gone in liquidation, then the demonstrative legatee will get out of that demonstrated source and not from other properties that may be added. If legacies are generally given, that give so much to so-and-so, so much to so-and-so, then such legacies are together to be clubbed, and it is to be seen how they should be paid. Take for instance a case that 10 people are given 1 lakh rupees each, and subsequently it is found that testator has got a general fund which is clubbed together. He is only of 90 lakh rupees, 9 lakh rupees. So 10 people given 1 lakh each and the fund is 9 lakh only. So there is no 10 lakh. In such case, the legacies are to be pro rata, pro tanto reduced down. And then after such reduction, the reduced amounts will be paid to the legatees. The legacy, the last two types we have to see, which are very important. A onerous bequest. A bequest which is with some liability. Suppose that testator has got a house. This house is already mortgaged with a bank. He has taken a loan. And in his will he has said, I hereby give this my house to Z. Now, if Z accepts that bequest, he is liable to make good the loan. He is liable to pay the loan. He cannot say, I have not contracted that loan and therefore I am not liable to pay. This is owner's bequest, bequest with a liability, bequest with a burden, owners. While another type of bequest, very peculiar one. And in these family relations, such type of things happen, which is called bequest calling upon the legatee to make election. That is to say, a testator does not have a right to a particular property, transfers that property of another to a third person by will, bequest, and by the same will confers some benefit on the owner of that property. So suppose that if testator were to say, I hereby transfer servant number 10 to B and give a sum of rupees 1 lakh to C. In fact, servant number 10 does not belong to testator. Servant number 10 belongs to C. So C's property he has bequeathed to B. But by the same will, as part of the same transaction, he has granted a benefit of 1 lakh rupees to the owner who is B. In such a case, the owner is put to his election. If he accepts that money, he must allow the property to pass to the legatee. If he says, who the testator is to pass my property, I want to retain my property, then in such a case, he cannot claim benefit. That is his election, whether to lose the property and claim the benefit, or whether to retain the property and lose the benefit. If he does not make election within 1 year, the executor can call upon him to make the will, and thereafter to make the election, and thereafter within reasonable time, he has to make the election. Now, when executor, suppose that he is there, he approaches after the death of the testator for the authority, what we in the beginning saw, a probate. And when he gets this, he has to proceed with the payment of legacies. But while making the payment of legacies, some priority payments are to be made, priority payments are to be seen. And these priority payments, that is total assets minus funeral expenses of the testator, because the executor has to see this. And what shall be the amount of funeral expenses which is reasonably justifiable, taking into account the position of the testator, his local standing, the public standing, as well as assets which he has got. Such a reasonable amount can be spent first. Then, if he was ill, then all deathbed expenses are to be paid first. The medical fees, medical expenses are to be paid first. Then, if somebody, some relations, etc., were required to be put in some hotel or in the hospital itself to take care of the testator, lodging for 1 month, that is the priority payment. And one very important thing, that 3 months' salaries of the household servants, craftsmen, or the people taking care for him, these are to be paid as priority payment. And then what remains are the assets which are to be distributed. While distributing the assets, sometimes it may happen that some legacies lapse. They are neither void nor they are by choice given one way or the other. But whenever a legatee, though he was living on the date of making the will, if he has died before the death of testator, legacy automatically lapses. Likewise, if there is a joint legacy given to A and B and one of them is dead, again that also lapses. Redemption of legacies is a very peculiar topic. That sometimes it happens that a legacy is clear, specific. That testator has said that I hereby bequeath my house on road so and so, bearing number so and so, to X. And during his lifetime, after making the will, testator has sold out that house to somebody. That act of selling itself means that legacy is redeemed, lost. Or suppose that he has changed the nature of the property. He says that the golden ring presented to me in my marriage by so and so, I hereby give to X. and subsequently he has changed that golden ring into a chain. The nature of the property is changed, legacy stands ademned, or sometimes the abatement of legacies is there when the property is not sufficient to pay all, either proportionately or the last legacies will be abated and accordingly the remaining property would be given. We have seen these things, but there is another thing that happens in case of wills. Suppose that a man is seriously ill, lying in hospital, and now he feels that he is about to die. He has got a very good pen. Some relation comes, he says, I have no use of this now, it is for you. Or he has got a wristwatch, this is for you. Movable properties only. He gives, during his lifetime, delivers possession. Now, delivery of possession of movable property, normally under Transfer of Property Act, is called a gift. Gift is inter vivus, and the moment it is delivered, the vesting of the title is there. However, these gifts are made by the testator on deathbed. So it is called the donatio mortis causa. Gifts in contemplation of death or deathbed gifts. And speciality of this gifts is that a gift is valid only if testator dies of that ailment. If testator recovers, next day he will call all these donors and say, I need my wristwatch now, I need my pen now. So if testator recovers of that illness, gift is void. If testator dies of that illness, gift is absolute, gift is valid. Another important thing to be seen is executor is there in whom the property is properly vested. But suppose that there is no executor, there is no administrator, and some person intermeddles with the property unauthorizedly, just entering into the lands of the testator or dealing with the properties of the testator, he is called a executor dison tort. Dison of his own tort wrong. So, an executor dison tort means a person who is not appointed as executor but intermeddles with the property of the testator unauthorizedly, then he is fixed with the duties of an executor. Or after the death of a person, every other person dealing with his property acts as a trustee for that deceased person. These are the executor dison tort. Another thing that comes in wills is, suppose a testator has made a will and has not appointed an executor, or executor was appointed but he dies before testator, or the executor is not in a position to act, he himself is ill, not legally competent, or executor denies to act as executor, then any interested person, interested means those who can be either the legatees under the will, or if there is no will, who can get under the intestate succession, these persons may make an application to the court, and normally court means district court, makes application to the court, and then court may appoint some competent person to operate the will, execute the will. He is called an administrator. The letters of administration are given. Now, when this is so, ultimately, because we have seen in our CLAP lecture today, what was our subject? Making of wills and interpretation of wills. Now, interpretation of will is a very delicate problem because we are dealing with a man who has expressed his last wish that now he is not thinking anything for himself. He is thinking of the next world, and whatever properties he has got, he is giving. This is not for a price. This is not a contract. This is not a transfer. This is just a benevolence that he is conferring on the other party, and therefore his wishes are respected. And while interpreting wills, we say transfer of properties, the documents are to be interpreted strictly. While in case of interpretation of wills, wills are interpreted liberally as far as possible to give the effect to the true intention of the testator. Or one very old rule is there for interpretation of rules, that the armchair rule. The armchair rule. The judge shall sit in the armchair of the testator. That is to say, judge shall imagine himself or herself in the position of the testator and then try to find out what testator must be thinking. At this point, I will just call you back, remind you that we call it a testamentary succession. So wills are also known as testaments. What is a testament? See the dictionary meaning thereof. That even Bible is called testament. So testaments are divine, holy documents. And will is also regarded as a holy document. And therefore, no strict rules are to be applied. The mind of the testator is to be read and according wills are to be interpreted. So if a testator says, give my property to my children, then whoever are children, that is to be collected, that is to be found out, and property is to be given to them. But there are some norms, there are some broad rules that if testator is making just a statement that relation is shown, give my property to my children, it means only the legitimate children and children of the first degree, not the grandchildren. If he says, give my property to my children, and his children are illegitimate only, there are no legitimate children, then naturally what he meant is clear. Those illegitimate, it will go to them. This way, true intention of the testator is to be gathered, and then the will are to be interpreted. The next proposition is that how about registration of the wills? In case of registration of the wills, normally, registration of the wills, normally, a will need not be registered. By a strict rule, according to the rule, will need not be registered. However, at the time of obtaining the probate or letters of administration, will be put in the court. If there are objections to that, as if it was a suit, titles will be decided. But if testator is cautious and he wants to take precautions, then it is possible that testator may register the will under the Registration Act of 1908. Now, under the Registration Act, Section 17 of Registration Act deals with documents which are compulsorily registrable, that without registration, such documents are not valid. If you read the list of those documents under Section 17, will is not there. So will is not a compulsorily registrable instrument. While when you read Section 18 of the Registration Act, in Section 18, those are the optional registrable documents. The registration whereof is optional, and in that list, will is included. Therefore, even if you do not register a will, it is valid. If you wish to register a will, you may register under the Indian Registration Act 1908. When registering the will, now Section 27 thereof provides that will may be presented for registration by the testator himself. So testator going to the registrar presenting the will, and will may be registered, or by authorized person, power of attorney, etc. may present for registration. Now when a will is executed, suppose that in other cases, you execute a deed of transfer sale under Transfer of Property Act. Rule of Registration Act is that a will or that document instrument which is executed must be presented for registration within 3 months of execution, while this rule does not apply to wills. A will may be presented for registration at any time. Before death of testator, it can be done. When it is registered, the registration will be completed. Likewise, more wills than one can be registered. As we have seen, testator can make any will and only last will is the valid will. The another proposition is there that sometimes the testator is facing some problems, that his relations may be troublesome relations. And then he is afraid that if all these people know to whom the property is given, maybe that there are quarrels in my family today only or tomorrow only, and these people will not allow me to live properly till my death, then he may have a secret will. And how he can have a secret will and yet registered? The provision of Indian Registration Act is that will may be just put in an envelope. Envelope may be sealed, and this sealed envelope will be presented for registration to the registrar of the documents. There are in registrar's office the boxes which are fireproof boxes. In such boxes with entries made in the registers, the will be deposited, that envelope will be deposited. The testator may any time come and withdraw that envelope, entries will be made accordingly. Or the testator is dead, then any person, either executor or any interested party who can be heir on even intestate succession, may make an application to testator, to registrar, and may say that such and such will has been deposited by the testator. That will should be now open. The registrar will call upon such person that what is the proof that he is dead. The proof of death of testator will have to be given. Once this proof is given, then in presence of that applicant who had made the application, the registrar of the instruments will open the box, get the envelope, will open the envelope, and the contents of the envelope, that is the will, he will register as normally documents are registered, and this way document may be registered, will may be registered. While the next thing now we want to discuss as the last part of our today's discussion, we have seen that today Indian Succession Act 1925 includes all the persons, including Hindus. And Hindus include Hindu, Jain, Buddhist, Sikhs, and all panthas. So today, by and large, only the Muslim wills are not included under the Indian Succession Act 1925. What are the provisions for Muslim wills, Muslim testaments? The Muslim wills or Muslim testaments are governed right from 12th century. Authorities found that what is known as Hidayah, that is to say guide. This is of 12th century, that is 1200 AD. Then in Hidayah, provisions are made for will. A Muslim will is called a wasiyat, and the wasiyats can be made since then as per those rules. While during Aurangzeb's time, Fatwa Alamgiri, that is the orders of the Alamgir, maybe 350 years or so before this date, that further rules of wills were given. Here, the rules shortly stated can be this way, that how the estate of the deceased is to be applied in Mohammedan wills. The very logical rules, which are analogous to the Indian Succession Act rules, or perhaps which may be borrowed from the Muslim rules also, that first the funeral expenses of the testator are to be deducted. Then the expenses, deathbed expenses are to be paid, that is medical expenses, etc. The expenses for obtaining probate or letters of administration are to be paid next. Then wages for 3 months of laborers, the people working for him, are to be paid. And then if testator was liable to pay his creditor some debts, these debts shall be paid out of his assets first, and then only what is the net remaining property will be ascertained. However, a Mohammedan testator does not have authority to bequest all the remaining property. Whatever is the property that can be passed by will, of the total property, only 1/3 can be subject matter of will. Or under Muslim law, even today, the rule is that of the total disposable property, 2/3 cannot be disposed by will, only 1/3 can be subject matter of a will, and then 2/3 is retained for intestate succession, which will go to the heir according to the inheritance rules. The wasiyat or the will, this wasiyat is executed by, if the testator has named a person to execute it, he is called, the executor in Muslim law is called the wasi. And this wasi will be executed. The Muslim will can be made. Who can make, if that is the question, can be made by a Muslim. So the testator must be Muslim, professing Muslim religion. Then he must be of sound mind, and he must not be minor. He must be major. Under old Muslim law, the age of majority was 15 years. While when the Indian Majority Act of 1875 was passed, in 1875 itself, that was made applicable to all. And therefore, since 1875, that rule of 15 years majority came to be modified, and that was 18 years majority. And therefore, today, a Muslim who is of sound mind and who has attained the age of majority, 18 years, and who has got the property, he can make a will. Now, this will, in what form it shall be? Muslim law does not prescribe any particular form. It may be in any form, it may be written, it may not be written. If written, may be executed, signed. Even if it is not signed, nothing matter. It may be holograph will, or as in one of the cases it happened, that a Muslim had given instructions to his solicitor, to his lawyer, that he wants to make a will, and a particular house should be given to a particular person. And before that lawyer could draft the will and the testator could sign the will, testator was dead. The instructions given to the lawyer, the solicitor, were approved, and it was said that this is a sufficient will and that legatee could get that particular property. In other words, we can say Muslim law requires that if the testator has expressed his wish in specific words, clear words, or unequivocal expression of his intention to pass over the property, that is respected. Or to make it simple, we can say that what we have seen under the Indian Succession Act 1925, that privileged will and unprivileged will. In Muslim law, both classification is put together, and a will can be privileged and unprivileged in the same way it can be made. While under Muslim law, some restricted bequests are there, or what we call in the beginning wide bequests. Here, the restricted bequests are bequest to an heir. It cannot be made. Why? Because for heirs, 2/3 is reserved, and as a heir, he will get that. Or bequest to unborn person cannot be made, or bequest which is made more than 1/3. That 1/3 is disposable property. If it is more than that, it will not take effect. Or a bequest made to a person who has subsequently murdered the testator. That bequest is also void. Or if you are creating an estate unknown to Muslim law, that is also void. The bequest can be revoked at any time by the testator, by express wish or by his act, as we saw ademption, or we saw that testator changing the nature of the property. Those are here also. The abatements, etc., in similar rules. However, one important thing to be seen now, which is common for the Muslims as well as non-Muslims. That is, though we have said under section 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, and 170 of the Indian Succession Act 1925. That is, bequest made to unborn person. Just in a sweeping statement, I said that these bequests are not valid because they are creating perpetuity. However, sometimes out of precaution, to protect the legatee from, because legacy in such cases is made only when exigency is there. The testator is put under certain circumstances where he wants to protect the next generation, or suppose that a testator has got a bad son and he feels that this son will not retain the property properly. He says, I hereby bequest my house to my son A for life, and to that son's son absolutely. Here he is not allowing the absolute interest to the son. The property is not vesting in the son absolutely. He is postponing vesting. But here, this postponement is for the benefit of the property as well as for the benefit of the ultimate person for whom it is meant, that is son's son. And this particular concession is granted by law. Here, section 113 says, that though under 112 it is said, bequest to unborn person is not valid. 113 says, if you want to make a bequest to unborn person, see that first limited interest is created in favor of some living person, and then ultimately the interest is given to the unborn person. Property that I hereby bequest my property to A for life, and then to S son. This is valid. This is valid, and in such case, it can be given to son. However, 114 again will say perpetuity, that how much you can postpone. You can give life interest to any number of living persons, plus first unborn person, but before his majority, property must vest in him. Or in other words, a testator saying, I hereby grant this property to A for life, then to B for life, then to C for life, and then to C's son absolutely at the age of 18. It is valid. Because A for life, B for life, C for life, even if they appear to be 2 or 3 persons, all of them they are living persons, that is one generation. And then the first unborn generation he is getting before attaining majority. But if you say the C's son at the age of 25, then rule against perpetuity is violated and that legacy is not valid. Likewise, under section 117, if a bequest is made to a class of persons, that A for life and then to B's sons, then only those sons which are at the time of death of A are living, they will get the property. Beyond their majority, it cannot be extended. So this way, the succession takes place. Now in this, as you must have seen, that subject is very wide one, and we have to cover it within a time of 1 hour or so. I have already taken 1 hour and 17 minutes. And now is the time for you people to ask me the questions. But let me make clear to you that all this discussion we had was meant not for solving your cases in the court. It was discussing the principles or jurisprudence of the subject, which is for your claim. Here, you can never say that why a particular case is not discussed in a particular way, because in court, no two cases are similar. Just change one fact and the whole thing changes. Or you can never say, why we have studied the same thing in our curriculum also at law stage. Subjects do never change. The Succession Act from 1925 is the same. Every day it will be the same. And only improvements are to be seen. The new aspects are to be seen. Accordingly, you can ask any questions you wish. And those I can answer. Please proceed.
Sir, first query is that if bequest is void, what will happen to concerned property?
Okay. So we can put it very good question, Mr. Ganesh. The
Yes.
proposition will be that here is a concept of residue. A concept of residue, or sometimes a residuary legatee is there. So if a specific bequest is there, it is addemed, or legatees are dead, therefore bequests are void, etc. And all the properties of testator are not disposed of under the will. Then such properties are residue, and such residue passes under intestate succession. That is, as if he has not made will, and whoever are the heirs on intestate succession, they will get that property. Anything else?
Yes, sir. How the testator execute or authorize person to execute the will, whether by document or orally?
No, the proposition that documents can be oral only in case of privileged will. That is to say, the army men, airmen, sailors who are on expedition. Now, in such cases, they will be expressing their desire, if it is oral, to their officer. And it is one of the duty of those officers. They can always record that. And that will be a privileged will. While under Mohammedan law, it is similarly so that if a will is not written, if it is in the handwriting of the testator, even if it is not signed, as if it was a privileged will, it is allowed. It is to be proved by witnesses then. The witnesses will be called in the court and then it will be proved.
Yes. Next question is, what will be the proof of will? How will is to be proved if both the attesting witnesses are dead?
The proposition is simple, that even in case of transfer of property, similar questions arise. That if a document instrument is challenged in the court, that is to say, when executor is making an application for probate, or a person makes an application for letters of administration, and at that time the objections are taken that this is not a valid will. Either it is not the signature of the testator, or those are not the signatures of the attesting witnesses, or those attesting witnesses had never been there before the testator. Such type of things are matters of evidence. So in the court, as if it was a suit, it will be converted into a contested thing, and then by recording evidence, as we have seen evidence of documents, the primary evidence, secondary evidence, and so on, and according to that evidence, it will be decided.
Yes.
Any other question?
Doctrine of election and estoppel, relevance in will.
The proposition, as you rightly said, that concept of estoppel, that is 115 of Indian Evidence Act,
Yes.
that when one party by his act, conduct, or statement has made another person to believe something to be true, and that other person acts accordingly, then neither he nor his legal representative shall be allowed to deny the truthfulness of that particular representation. That is 115 of the Evidence Act, estoppel. Now, in case of election, if A's property is transferred by the testator to B, though he has no right to transfer A's property, and by the same will, as part of the same will, he has given some benefit to owner A. Now, the conduct is meant that the benefit is given to A because testator knows that his property has been given to C. If now B chooses to accept the benefit, he must accept the burden also, and he must allow his property to pass under doctrine of election to C. If he says, no, I want to retain my property, then in that case, the benefit will revert back to the testator, and the disappointed legatee C, who was to get the property, he will get the value of that property, compensated, it is said, value of that property, or whatever the remainder is there, and this way the property is disposed of. Next, please.
Another query is, if prior will is registered and subsequent will is notarized, then which will prevail?
Now, the proposition that as lawyers, we have to understand very properly that in olden days, when we were beginners in law, that is now I am speaking about that beginning of my practice, that is 52 years back. At that time, there were notaries known as notary public only in Mumbai and nowhere else. And that notaries, they were considered to be the most respected people. When exigencies of the time required, there are notaries, and notaries. A notary public or a magistrate certifying a document. It is only a recorded, a registered document, but that registration or record does not have authenticity beyond that this is before him. And in his register, this has been entered. That is the only thing. But whether the notary does not find out whether testator has title to dispose of the property, whether testator is competent to dispose the property, whether testator owns the property or not, this notary does not know. All that notary knows that the persons who have executed, they were before me, and this document was signed, executed before me, and it was registered in my register. This is the thing, and that is sometimes sufficient for proving a document. Any other question?
Next question is with regard to probate. In which cities, what is the necessity of probate, and in which cities it is mandatory to obtain probate?
Very many times it happens that the will is not registered and the executor is there, and all the relations of the testator are so people of good understanding, maybe that those are normally his close relations, family members. They say whatever testator has, that our predecessor has expressed as his last desire, we respect, and accordingly we proceed. Then you will find sometimes entries are made in record of rights also, that the last will is presented and accordingly entries are made. So it is not compulsory that a probate should be obtained. But an executor, when he sits with all the relations and it is found that some people are disputing, he goes to the court to take the authority, because if he distributes the assets without the proper consent of the parties, and subsequently it is found that some distribution was made without authority, he is liable to make it good as executed dishonest tort, and therefore for his safety he goes to the court, presents the will and says that give me probate. That is a certificate that the accompanying copy of the will is valid and proper, and accordingly it will be executed.
Yes. Next query is that if attesting witness is also beneficiary, then what will, whether that will is valid?
The proposition we have seen that the only persons who can say that will was made properly, there was no pressure, there was no coercion, that is the attesting witnesses. And therefore, if they themselves are interested in the will, some legacy is given to them, they are bound to say, yes, that was proper, even if there is fraud, even if there is coercion and so on. And therefore, provision is made out in the Succession Act that any bequest made to an attesting witness is void. Bequest made to the spouse of the attesting witness is also void. So if attesting witness is a male, to him or to his wife, if attesting witness is a female, to her or to her husband, it cannot be made. Even if it is made, it is void, so that he or she does not have any interest in that, and therefore he is expected to speak the truth.
Yes.
Anything else?
Next question is, if any Hindu is म्हणजे एखाद्या हिंदू व्यक्तीला विलने शेतजमीन मिळाली, तो स्वतः शेतकरी नाही, अशा वेळी विलची अंमलबजावणी कशी करायची? इज देयर एनी बार अंडर BTL ऍक्ट?
प्रपोजिशन इज, किंवा आपण मराठीत सांगू की BTL ऍक्टचा तुमचा जो हा प्रश्न आहे, हा आला सेक्शन 63 खालचा, बरोबर?
Yes.
Section 63 says agricultural land can be transferred only to an agriculturist. 63A थोडा वेळ आपण बाजूला ठेवू, इंडस्ट्री वगैरे टाउनशिप हे बाजूला ठेवू.
Yes.
इथे आता दोन प्रश्न येतील. ते who can make the will and who can take under the will. Suppose that you have raised the question under 63. I will give you another question. समजा ऑलरेडी तुमच्याकडे एक 55 एकर जमीन आहे आणि ऑलरेडी सिलिंग ऍक्ट खाली तुमची एन्क्वायरी चालू आहे 1 एकर का काढून घेऊ नये 54 एकरच अलाउड आहे टेस्टाटरनं तुम्हाला आणखी कॅन यू रिसीव्ह इट इज डिफरंट थिंग म्हणजे टेस्टाटर कॅन गिव्ह बट वेदर लिगॅटी कॅन ऍक्सेप्ट if he is not agriculturist he cannot have agricultural land. Therefore it is disqualification of the legatee to hold the property. In such a case that bequest would be void, property will fall in residue, and if there is a residuary legatee it will go to him. If none, it will go under the intestate succession, and under intestate succession if father was because intestate succession is among the relations consequently, if that testator was entitled to retain the property, he was agriculturist, then his heirs also will be agriculturist.
Thank you so much, sir.
Now, before you thank me, let me thank you that this is a very good exercise you are doing, and the opportunity given by you to me, I hope that it was I had come up to your expectations and it was found useful by all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Advocate Hemangi Patare madam to offer vote of thanks.
Yes, Ganesh sir. On behalf of Bar Council of Maharashtra and Goa, I am taking this opportunity to express vote of thanks to our today's speaker, senior advocate and former chairman of Bar Council of Maharashtra and Goa, Advocate Shri Bhaskarrao Abad sir. Drafting and interpretation of wills itself has its own significance as it is related to testamentary disposition. Sir, your guidance and has cleared all the doubts and queries in our minds regarding drafting of wills, and it will help us in drafting and interpretation of wills in more efficient and effective manner. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patare madam. Sharad sir, please end the meeting.